Okay, so X-Men 97 Season 2 got officially announced a couple of days ago and I decided to rewatch the first season. Now, there are some people you should know beforehand, and if you already know or don't care, skip to this time. And now, I'm probably going to miss some of their powers and will also try to simplify some of their powers. We've got Cyclops, who can shoot lasers out of his eyes, Jean Grey, who has telekinetic powers, telepathic powers and can create force fields, Storm, who can control the weather, Bishop, who can absorb and redirect energy, also he's from the future, Gambit, who can turn anything he touches into a bomb, Rogue, where if she touches anyone she can absorb their powers and memories. She also once permanently absorbed Miss Marvel's powers. Morph, who can, as the name suggests, morph into other people. Beast, who is a genius and whose power is super strength. Wolverine, whose power is regeneration and he has adamantium claws. Jubilee, who can shoot fireworks from her hands. Professor X or Charles Xavier, who has powerful telepathic powers. And lastly, Magneto, who can control metal. The first episode begins 1 year after Henry Gyrick's assassination attempt on Professor Charles Xavier and him being presumed dead. Xavier's death has gained more sympathy towards mutants from the rest of the world. We then see Cyclops, Bishop and Storm saving a kid named Roberto da Costa from an anti-mutant group who's using Sentinel tech. And for those of you that don't know, Sentinels are robots that are programmed to hunt and kill mutants. To find Sentinel creator Bolivar Trask, Storm and Cyclops go to Henry Gyrick, since when Gyrick was working in the defense department he funded Trask's Sentinel program. Therefore they think that he knows what Trask is, but he doesn't tell them, so Jean uses Cerebro, which makes her psychic abilities more powerful, and she is able to find where Trask is. Jean is able to locate Trask in the Sahara Desert at a junkyard, and there the X-Men are attacked by a bunch of destroyed Sentinels and a Mastemol supercomputer he rebuilt, which the X-Men have no problem with. Trask is then arrested by the UN. Back at the X-Mansion, we see Roberto leaving the X-Men. Jean and Cyclops announce that they will be leaving too, to raise their kid in safety. They're interrupted by an intruder alert, which turns out to be Magneto, who reveals that in Xavier's will he left everything to Magneto, including the X-Mansion and the X-Men. Episode 2 starts with the UN coming to the X-Mansion to arrest Magneto for his past crimes of terrorism. He surrenders after being assured that he will be treated with a fair trial to prove his good intentions to the world and to the X-Men. During the trial, the UN building gets attacked as people believe that Magneto shouldn't be given a trial, and while trying to fend off the attackers, Storm orders Magneto to be released to help the X-Men fight off the attackers. While this is happening, Jean goes into labor, so Cyclops and Rogue leave to go and help Jean. At the hospital, Rogue is forced to absorb a nurse's knowledge after he refuses to deliver a mutant's baby. Jean then gives birth to a boy who she and Cyclops names Nathan. Back at the UN building, the attackers are gotten into the main room and their leader Executioner shoots at Magneto, but Storm jumps in the way, taking the hit, which disables her powers. Magneto gets angry at this and apprehends Executioner and stops their attack. Magneto is later pardoned and discussions begin for the mutant nation Genosha to join the UN. We also see Rogue and Magneto start a relationship after it's teased throughout the episode that they have had a relationship in the past. Storm also gets the news that the blast she got has made her powerless permanently, so she decides to leave the team to try and find new meaning in life. And while the X-Men are discussing her decision, they are surprised when a woman who looks identical to Jean shows up at their door. Episode 3 starts with Beast doing tests on the Jean lookalike, where he finds out that that is actually the real Jean Grey and the other one is a clone. And now, in episode 1 it's implied that Roberto leaves the X-Mansion, and he is not seen with other X-Men when they are discussing Storm's choice to leave the team. But he's suddenly back with the X-Men as we see him in the background when Beast is doing tests on Jean. Beast also finds that the creator of the Jean clone is Mr. Sinister, who is a scientist from the 19th century who took mutant DNA to become stronger and to live longer. Mr. Sinister contacts the clone and takes control of her mind, turning her into the Goblin Queen. She gives Nathan to Sinister, who believes that Nathan can become the most powerful mutant ever thanks to being Jean and Cyclops' son. Clone Jean then makes most of the X-Men have to face their greatest fears, which with the help of the real Jean they are able to overcome. Morph, who's one of Mr. Sinister's many victims, leads some of the X-Men to one of Mr. Sinister's labs, where they are greeted by the Goblin Queen, who beats the X-Men, but is confronted telepathically by the real Jean, who uses their shared memory to free her from Mr. Sinister's control. So the clone Jean and Cyclops go and save Nathan, but they see that Nathan has been infected with something. Beast is able to find that Nathan has been infected with a techno-organic virus, and unfortunately there is no cure, so Bishop will have to take Nathan with him to the future to hopefully find a cure. And after saying goodbye to Nathan, the Jean clone decides to leave the X-Men and change her name to Madeline Pryor. We then see Storm at a bar where she is approached by a friend of Charles Xavier, Forge, who tells her that he can restore her powers. Episode 4 begins on Jubilee's 18th birthday, which she wants to spend at the arcade, but Magneto refuses and tells the team to focus on their training. While explaining what happened to Roberto, they are pulled into a video game based on Jubilee's previous adventures created by the alien Mojo. At first, Jubilee enjoys reliving her past missions, but after realizing that the game is dangerous and meeting an older version of herself who tells her that she would just be living an empty life if she stayed in the game, she doesn't want to stay there anymore. The older Jubilee helps Jubilee and Roberto defeat Mojo, and the pair return to the real world. We then see Storm and Forge on his ranch, where we learn that Forge is actually a mutant himself, and his power is that he can understand, invent, and create any mechanical thing he can imagine. They try a machine that he created to get her powers back, but unfortunately it doesn't work, and Storm learns that Forge designed the technology which Executioner's gun was based on. Storm tries to leave, but is brought back to the ranch, where she and Forge are attacked by a demon called Adversary, who poisons Forge. Okay, so episode 6 is basically just a continuation of episode 4, and I think it's more fitting to have it here instead of after episode 5. Mostly because I think having episode 5, then 7 through 10 has a better flow. Episode 6 begins with Shi'ar Empress Lilandra Nermani announcing her engagement to Charles Xavier, but her sister Deathbird refuses to let her sister marry someone from Earth, and challenges Xavier to remove all of his memories of Earth to prove his loyalty to the Shi'ar. But Xavier refuses, which starts a battle between the Shi'ar Imperial Guard and Deathbird supporters until Xavier pulls them all into the astral plane, a psychic realm of pure thought where powerful telepaths can project their consciousness, and teaches them about coexisting. But the lesson is interrupted when Xavier gets a vision about what happens in episode 5, which makes him decide that it's time to go back to Earth, even though it will prove that Deathbird was right. Meanwhile, Storm is forced to go and find a rare cactus that can cure Forge. She's able to find it. She also comes face to face with Adversary once again, and Storm is able to defeat Adversary and regain her powers. Storm heals Forge, and they learn about what happens in episode 5. The episode ends with Trask being confronted by Mr. Sinister, who tells him that what happened in episode 5 was just the beginning. The 5th episode begins with Magneto, Rogue, and Gambit traveling to Genosha to attend a gala later that night to celebrate Genosha recently joining the UN. There the council wants to talk privately to Magneto before the gala. Rogue and Gambit also meets Nightcrawler there, whose power is teleportation. The Genoshan council wants Magneto to be the leader of Genosha, to which he agrees on the condition that Rogue will lead with him. Rogue explains to Gambit about Magneto's condition to become leader and admits that she had a secret relationship with Magneto when she was younger, as his abilities allowed her to touch him without hurting him. This she cannot do with Gambit, but Gambit argues that their relationship is deeper than skin, but until Magneto breaks her heart they will stay friends. At the gala, Magneto and Rogue dance and kiss, but that's when she realizes that she made a mistake choosing him over Gambit. Madeline gets a psychic warning from the future causing a nosebleed. She then stumbles out of the building where she sees the time-traveling Cable warning everyone about something, and Madeline realizes that he's an adult Nathan, but before he can warn everyone about what's coming, he's sent back to the future. As the gala building explodes and we see that Genosha has been attacked by a giant sentinel, Rogue, Gambit and Magneto try to save as many people as possible, but Magneto is killed by the sentinel. This makes Rogue furious and she flies straight towards the sentinel, but she is stopped by Gambit. Before the sentinel is able to kill more mutants, Gambit challenges the sentinel, but before it's able to hit it, he gets impaled by the sentinel. He uses his power and charges it up with explosive energy, blowing it up but also sacrificing his life. We then see the rest of the X-Men in the X-Mansion looking at the TV devastated about what happened. The episode then ends with Rogue holding Gambit's dead body and crying. The 7th episode begins with the X-Men arranging a funeral for Gambit while Rogue searches for Gyrick and Trask. After gaining info from General Ross that Gyrick was moved to a cabin, she goes there, where she meets Captain America and learns that someone had moved Gyrick before Cap got there. Cap also tells her that Gyrick was moved to a location in Mexico, so Rogue thinks that they should go there now, but Cap wants it to get approved first, and since that was not the answer she wanted, she throws Cap's shield away. And now, come on, was that really necessary? In Mexico, Rogue uses her powers and absorbs all of Gyrick's memories, and Gyrick is murdered later that night. The X-Men go to Genosha to hopefully find some survivors. Jean is able to find Emma Frost thanks to Jean feeling a telepathic presence, and Emma was able to survive thanks to a mutation turning her skin into diamond. The X-Men are then contacted by a terrified Trask who tells them to come to Madripoor. They pick up Rogue on their way there. In Madripoor they learn that Mr. Sinister and the UN secret OCT division have been developing a highly advanced Sentinel program. They are then attacked by Trask, who has been turned into a powerful human Sentinel, and are saved by Cable, who is able to defeat Trask with an EMP. Cyclops also learned that Cable is Nathan. Cable explains that Sinister is working with a greater threat that they must stop. We then see Mr. Sinister talk to that threat, Bastion, who killed Gyrick, and he reveals to Sinister that Charles Xavier is alive in space, and that Magneto actually survived Genosha and is held prisoner by them. Episode 8 begins with Cable explaining that in his timeline, Bastion used the Genosha massacre to receive backings for its Prime Sentinel program that resulted in a 300-year war and the enslavement of mutants. The UN reveals to the world that Charles Xavier is alive, which starts an anti-mutant protest outside the X-Mansion. Cyclops, Jean and Cable travel to a town called Harmony, as Cable had gotten a lead about one of Bastion's factories being there, but it turns out to be Bastion's childhood home, and there they learn that Bastion is a human Sentinel hybrid. We then see that Dr. Cooper, an ally to the X-Men, is actually working with Bastion, and she learns about Operation Zero Tolerance, a program that turns humans into Prime Sentinels, and we see Prime Sentinels being activated around the world. Beast learns that hundreds of humans have their Sentinel genes awakened and tries to warn the X-Men, but he is stopped by Prime Sentinel, and as the X-Mansion burns to the ground, Wolverine and Nightcrawler try to protect an unconscious Rogue from an army of Prime Sentinels. Jubilee and Roberto are attacked at a mall, and while escaping we finally see Roberto's powers. I've just seen small glimpses of it, and his power is that he can absorb solar energy and then basically turn into the Human Torch. They end up accidentally crashing into Roberto's mother's party, and Roberto's mom turning them into the Prime Sentinels, as she believes that they are helping. Bastion learns that Dr. Koopa set Magneto free, who travels to the North Pole and turns off all electricity around the world, which shuts down all of the Prime Sentinels. Back at the X-Mansion, Charles Xavier returns to Earth and summons all of the X-Men back to what's left of the mansion. Episode 9 begins with Magneto creating Asteroid M to become the new Genosha. He then goes to the X-Mansion and invites the X-Men to join him, which Rogue and Roberto do. The rest of the X-Men return to the former base on Muri Island to regroup, before splitting up into two teams. Cyclops' team, who will go to Asteroid M to confront Magneto, and Jean and Storm's team, who will head to Bastion's hideout. Beast and Forge create a collar that can block Bastion's control over the Sentinels. Jean and Storm's team battle an army of Bastion-controlled Sentinels, which are able to shoot Storm and Forge out of the sky. Beast and Morph are captured by Bastion, and Mr. Sinister is able to take control of Cable's mind and use his genetic telepathic powers to overpower Jean. On Asteroid M, Xavier attempts to take control of Magneto's mind, but Cyclops receives a psychic message from Jean and stops the professor as the other team needs more time. Magneto is then stabbed by Wolverine and seriously injured, and Magneto begins ripping the adamantium metal from Wolverine's skeleton. The 10th episode begins right after the last, and Xavier takes control of Magneto's mind and reverses the blackout, which fractures Magneto's mind and reactivates every Prime Sentinel. Just as Bastion prepares to execute Cable, Jean re-emerges as the Phoenix and places the collar on Bastion, which turns every Prime Sentinel back to human. She then takes away Sinister's powers. Bastion then re-emerges and rips off Cable's metal arm and absorbs it as he flies off towards Asteroid M, hoping to crash it into Earth and kill everyone. Jean warns Cyclops of Bastion's approach. Xavier is able to contact them and tell them that he must repair Magneto's psyche. When he gets there, he is confronted by Rogue, who punches him all the way to the moon, but he just regenerates and apprehends her. She is saved by Roberto, who chooses a new name, Sunspot. Bastion is able to apprehend them both before heading back to Asteroid M, where he is met by Nightcrawler, Jubilee and Cyclops, who manage to put up a good fight, but Bastion is able to regenerate every time. That's when the rest of the team join them. Cyclops tells the team to stand down and tries to reason with Bastion, but that's when missiles launched by the US military bomb Asteroid M. Bastion is killed by the core reactor explosion, and as the asteroid descends back to Earth, Jubilee falls out but is saved by Sunspot and they fly back to Earth. The X-Men use their combined efforts to stop the asteroid from crashing into the Earth. With Xavier's help, Magneto is able to regain his consciousness and send the asteroid back into space, where they're all teleported away and presumed dead. 6 months later, Forge is visited by Bishop, who tells them that the X-Men are trapped in time. We then see that Jean and Cyclops have been sent to the year 3600 AD, where they meet a young Nathan, and that Rogue, Nightcrawler, Beast, Xavier and Magneto have been sent to ancient Egypt in 3000 BC, where they meet Ensaba Nur, the first ever mutant and a young version of Apocalypse. Then in a mid-credit scene, we see present-day Genosha, where Apocalypse finds one of Gambit's playing cards.